All right, guys, so it's been a while since I've done one of these, but I wanted to kind of break down what transpired yesterday in the ninth inning of the Dodgers-Phillies game, where the Dodgers ended up winning, but it was a close game, and it came down to the last out in the bottom of the ninth. Well, obviously, people were all upset with Dave Roberts bringing in Blake Trinan, who has not been himself for a while now, instead of Roki Sasaki, who's kind of been dominant in that closer role. But that's another conversation for another day. What I wanted to talk about was kind of the decisions that were made by Philly, which I still kind of don't understand. And that was the whole thing with bunting Bryson Stott with Nick Castellanos at second. So Trinan gave up, I think, like 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth to make it a 4-3 game, where they ended up putting Vesia in. Now, they put in Vesia because they wanted the matchup between Stott and Vesia, lefty on lefty, which kind of puts it in favor of the Dodgers. Now, we can obviously see that Thompson didn't want that matchup. So it became pretty obvious that they were going to bunt in that situation, where things get a little bit weird. So if you're watching this game and you've been kind of paying attention to the Phillies for the last couple of weeks, Bader's been out with a hamstring injury, but he was hot. He was swinging the bat really well. So it was kind of, everyone kind of thought, well, are they going to give Bader the at-bat? And then it became very obvious that, yes, Bader was going to be coming up after Stott. Now, at this point is where everyone's kind of split. Now, look, Stott is not the greatest batter, obviously, in this situation. He's batting ninth. He's late in the lineup. It's a lefty-on-lefty matchup. But the problem is this. Everyone knew that he was going to bunt, including the Dodgers, who had corners in. Muncy was in and Freeman was in, right? So the success of this bunt was going to be very, very slim. And then you had Castellanos at second, who can't run. And that's where people are a little bit upset. And here's where I'm kind of confused, right? You know Castellanos can't run. You know everyone's in. The world knows you're going to bunt. Stott is at the plate. You have Bader coming up, so you can't pinch run for Castellanos to hope that you can get someone to third to get that tying run at third. So at that point, your hands are kind of tied. And that's where people are like, if you knew that your hands were tied, you were going to hit Bader after, and then you're going to need a pinch runner for him because he cannot run at all. Castellanos can still run a little bit. He's just super slow. Why wouldn't you just let Bader swing the bat? No, it's kind of like, it's baseball knowledge. Everyone knows runners on first and second, less than 2 outs. You're going to bunt to get those guys in scoring position. Everyone knows. And in a game like this, you can't eliminate that possibility. But I think with this specific situation, knowing that Castellanos can't run, you're going to hit Bader afterwards to try to drive the run in. They should have just let Stott swing the bat because there was no way that the bunt was going to work. You have the pitcher, Muncy, and Freeman all in, right? So it would have had, you were hoping for an error or a misplay or something to happen for Castellanos to make it to third and for Bryson Stott to sacrifice himself at first, and it completely backfired. And then another thing people are upset, especially Phillies fans, like they strung together all these hits, they had the momentum, and then bunting Stott with Castellanos getting thrown out at third by a country mile. I didn't realize he was that slow, to be honest. He was out. Mookie Betts smoked him to third base. Muncy fields the ball